Good evening, everyone. Welcome to all Nova Scotians and people watching from beyond our borders. My name is Eric Sandy, and I have the privilege of being the chair of the Board of Governors of the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, and I will be your moderator for this evening. Nancy Noble, the director and CEO of the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, won't be with us tonight as she'll be taking part in the adjudication process for the design competition. I'd like to start by acknowledging that the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia shares the work of artists, engages creativity, and inspires conversations on Mi'kma'ki, the territory of the Mi'kmaq Nation, for more than 13,000 years. While Kjipuktuk, currently known as Halifax, has only existed for 271 years, we honor the peace and friendship treaties, the Mi'kmaq Nation, as well as the land itself. It's a really exciting night for art in our province. Some may be wondering why a new art gallery and why now. Well, art is important to our being. It transcends aesthetics, it explores who we are as a people, what we believe, and how we live. It expresses the often contradictory tension between what we think and what we feel. Art belongs to all of us, and the permanent collection at the AGNS belongs to all Nova Scotians. It is not simply the chosen few or for a dominant culture. Art is a living thing, forever evolving and changing, therefore we as a gallery need to change with it. The Art Gallery of Nova Scotia is engaging in a transformation and a reinvention of what it means to be a gallery for all people. The gallery embraces diversity while recognizing and celebrating all communities in our province. We strive to be inclusive in a public gathering place that connects people with art to inspire new ways of thinking. We are creating a new type of art museum that reimagines how a gallery can serve a community, but we cannot do this alone. We need your help to shape the art and the future of the province. So please engage with us throughout the process so the end result is a place shaped by the people of our province. Throughout the summer, 3 teams have been competing in a design competition. They've been developing conceptual designs for the new Art Gallery of Nova Scotia as part of the Waterfront Arts District in a bid to compete for the final contract. These teams were narrowed down from 46 responses, and tonight we'll be hearing about what inspired their designs and the details behind what you can see in the exhibition and online. The final 3 teams are extensive and multidisciplinary. We will show you the full team lists on your screen, but these teams are led by Architecture 49 with Diller, Scofidio, plus Renfro, Hargreaves, and Jones. DIALOG, Acre Architects, Brackish Design Studio, Shannon, Webb-Campbell. And KPMB Architects with Omar, Gandhi Architect, Jordan, Bennett Studio, Elder Lorraine, Whitman, Public Work, and Transsolar. Thank you to all of the teams for joining us tonight. The designs presented during the design competition are simply a starting point. These designs represent ideas for the beginning of the process to shape this place for and with Nova Scotians. Following the design competition, we will work with the winning team to launch a vigorous engagement process which will reach communities all across our province. With your feedback, the winning team will adapt their conceptual design to meet community needs. Your input is what will make this project a true success. Right now, you have the opportunity to provide your thoughts on the conceptual designs being presented tonight. You can see them in person at the gallery or at the artgalleryofnovascotia.ca. Before we meet the teams, I want to remind everyone of the vision for the new Arts District on the waterfront. It was informed by Nova Scotians throughout a public engagement process. The Art District will be a welcoming and inclusive public gathering place on the Halifax Waterfront that showcases the best in contemporary art and public programs. Developed with Nova Scotians, for Nova Scotians, the Arts District will increase opportunities for all to access and experience art, celebrate our diverse and unique stories through the arts, and enhance the overall waterfront experience. Along with the 3 teams, we are joined tonight by the President and CEO of Develop Nova Scotia, Jennifer Angel. They are a project partner on this important development. We're also joined by our professional advisor for the design competition, Joe Lobko from DTA Architects. So to get started, I'm going to pass it over to Jennifer to tell us a little bit about the Arts District. Jennifer, welcome, and thanks for joining us this evening.
Thanks very much, Eric, and good evening. As Eric said, I'm Jen Angel, and I'm the CEO of Develop Nova Scotia. And I'm really delighted to join you this evening to help kick off the exhibition for the new Nova Scotia Arts District. The Arts District is perhaps not surprisingly a project about art, but it's at least as much a project about people. It's about making art accessible to everyone. The Halifax Waterfront is a well-loved public gathering place. It's for locals and it's for visitors alike, and it's the site of some of our region's most anticipated cultural events. We think it's a natural platform for a new district dedicated to visual and performing arts, and is an active stage. It's a working waterfront with boats of all shapes and sizes, working and recreational. It's a place of small local business as well as modern commerce. It's a place to live, and it's a living place. It's constantly evolving and changing with events and performances, food and celebrations. It's a place of history, and many of its stories are still waiting to be told. It's a place of vibrant activity, but it's also a place of quiet contemplation, work and play, and it's imbued with meaning over time as people connect and engage with it. We are committed to building a waterfront that is a place for everyone, where everyone feels welcome. And to do that, we know we must build it with everyone. Likewise, in order for people to feel welcome and to see themselves in the new arts district, we believe that they must have a hand in creating it. Participation by Nova Scotians across the province, including groups and communities that have been traditionally underrepresented or who have felt that their participation did not matter, matters. Together, we have an opportunity to shape a new, inclusive arts district on the Halifax waterfront that reflects our diversity and is a place where everyone can belong. As Eric said, the concepts being shown today are just the beginning. They're a starting point for these critical conversations. They are an invitation to engage and to participate now. And the successful design team will also lead a robust public engagement that will harness the ideas of community to shape what is ultimately built here. Your participation now and throughout this process matters. The future of places and democratic societies rests not only on shared values, but on social infrastructure as well. The libraries, the public spaces and parks, the sidewalks and squares, and indeed, newly imagined art galleries, where people can come together and connections can be made. When social infrastructure is robust, people are more likely to build ties with neighbors and to invest in their communities. So says award-winning author Eric Kleinenberg, who we had the pleasure of hosting virtually in Halifax a couple of days ago as part of the Art City Building Conference. His and others' research shows that social infrastructure can help fight inequality and polarization and the decline of civic life. And innovative projects can inspire and address challenges like climate change and crime, while also building understanding and social cohesion. Some people are asking why an arts district? Is it really a priority? And in the context of so much loss and struggle, is this really the right time for an art gallery or a new arts district? Social infrastructure matters as a touchstone for bringing different people together in new ways to build understanding and community and resilience. It may never have mattered more. Just as the Central Halifax Library opening reignited interest in local communities and in local libraries and expanded our thinking about what a library could be and do for a community, here we aim to do the same with the arts. We aim to create a thriving destination where we can all gather to reflect and share, to challenge and be challenged, and to create and celebrate art, building on Nova Scotia's inherent creativity and rich arts and culture sector. The success of this effort will not be measured in glass and steel or in iconic status. It will be measured by the extent to which the design is accessible and captures the diverse and vibrant spirit and story of this place and its people, and the extent to which the new arts district is a place for everyone to participate in that expression and be inspired. Now I'm pleased to introduce you to Joe Lobko. Joe is an architect with over 40 years of experience and is currently a partner at DITA.
He has a particular interest in urban design, adaptive reuse, and the nonprofit sector. Joe was engaged to lead us through the design competition for this project. Joe, welcome, and thanks for joining us this evening. Are you there, Joe?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Lobko, and I am an architect engaged by the province of Nova Scotia to serve as their professional advisor for this design competition, intended to identify a preferred strategic design approach and design team for this significant provincial project. My role is to assist in the organization and management of this design competition and to help ensure that the interests of the province and each of the invited competitors are considered and reflected fairly in the execution of the process, and that each of the design teams are supported with the information and resources they require to be able to excel at their work and deliver the province with 3 excellent choices for our jury to consider. I'd like to add my voice to the chorus of those offering thanks and congratulations to each of the teams involved for having done just that. The work is exemplary, thoughtful, integrated in its thinking, and beautifully presented. The design teams have been provided with a detailed project brief, which outlines the space and performance targets for the project, as well as providing a lot of information about site conditions and context. The work you will be seeing this evening comes from each team's interpretation and understanding of that project brief. Canada has a long and successful history of employing design competitions to establish the general direction of design for major public institutions and public spaces to great effect. Invited competitions of this type allow project sponsors to consider a range of alternative design strategies for a specific site, while also advancing the development of new and innovative ideas for the topics under consideration. Competitions can be particularly effective in situations like this, when they are used to engage some of the best designers in the world to identify the future form that public institutions and spaces should take in addressing challenges like climate change and the evolution of space for culture to flourish. While the specific design proposals created for this competition will be critical in establishing the direction that this new provincial art gallery and associated public space will take, this design competition should be seen as part of the larger public engagement process already well underway by both the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia and Develop Nova Scotia for the future of the gallery and this critical public space. Once a preferred design approach and design team has been identified by our competition jury, the design will need to continue to evolve through the public engagement process to follow. The work of the jury in a design competition is critical in ensuring that the best ideas brought forward in this creative process are awarded, with the commission to implement this important public project. Their job is the very difficult one of selecting the best from a range of excellent choices, based on selection criteria identified in the project brief provided to each team. In this case, we have carefully selected a jury that reflects a range of experience and understanding relevant to the considerations at hand. This will include those responsible for the gallery's new vision and the stewardship of the gallery moving forward, as well as artists who contribute to the life of the gallery and its collection, and a diverse range of international designers with experience relevant to the ambitions of the program and the opportunities of the site. I'd like to now briefly introduce our jury in alphabetical order by last name. Claude Cormier, a brilliant landscape architect from Montreal, the principal associate of Claude Cormier and Associates. Sylvia D. Hamilton, an artist, a filmmaker, a writer, the English professor at the University of King's College in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Gregory Enriquez, an architect, managing principal of Enriquez Architects on the other coast in Vancouver, British Columbia. Francine Hubin, an architect, the founding partner and creative director of Meccanu, a great architectural firm in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, on yet another coast. Ursula Johnson, an interdisciplinary artist from South Brookfield, Nova Scotia, and originally from the Eskasoni First Nation in Cape Breton. Nancy Noble, the Chief Executive Officer and the Director of the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, who lives in Halifax. And finally, Claire Weiss, an architect, Canadian-born, but the founding partner and principal in charge of WXY Architecture and Urban Design in New York City, and our jury chair. On behalf of the province, I'd like to extend to the jury our very best wishes and deep appreciation for their willingness to work together to take on this important role. I'm very pleased that Nova Scotians have been provided with some engaging and exciting design choices as they contemplate a new home for culture on the Halifax Waterfront. And again, thank each of the teams involved for making that wish come true, and wish them in turn a successful evening ahead. Thank you.
And they'll also be recorded, so you'll have a chance to look at it later on after the presentation tonight, or you can share that with those who weren't able to tune in today to see it live. The presentation order was determined by random draw, so first we will be hearing from Architecture 49 with Diller, Scofidio, plus Renfro and Hargreaves Jones. We will now go live to Ron Burdock from Architecture 49 to begin. Ron?
Hey. Thank you, Eric, and thank you everyone for tuning in this evening. I am Ron Burdock. I'm a principal architect with Architecture 49 here in Halifax, and I'm really pleased this evening to be joined by our colleagues Elizabeth Diller and Ben Gilmartin, partners, and Sean Gallagher, Director of Sustainability with Diller, Scofidio, and Renfro, and Mary Margaret Jones, President of Hargreaves Jones. To get to tonight, we've been backed up by the many other members of our team, architects in our own offices, engineers of all sorts, lighting and exhibition designers, acousticians, building envelope, climate change and coastal specialists, accessibility and building code consultants, community engagement facilitators, and certainly not to be overlooked, cost consultants, all of whom have worked with one or more of us in the past and are here because we count on them to help us to get the details right. And this is really a milestone event for the city and for the province, but certainly for the gallery and for Develop Nova Scotia. And it's been a long time coming. A new waterfront home for the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia was being discussed when I was an architectural student in the 80s. And over the past 8 or 10 years, I've been fortunate to be able to contribute to some of the preparatory studies that have led to this project. So to see it finally reach this point is terrifically exciting. Architecture 49 is a fairly new firm, but we've actually been in Halifax for about 75 years, and I've worked here for the past 35. In 2014, WHW Architects joined with 6 other practices from across Canada to form one national firm. We have about 200 staff in 10 offices from coast to coast, including 45 here in Halifax. Quality of life projects like this one are really our reason for being. Schools, healthcare facilities, sports and rec centers, restoring the old town clock, and if we're really, really fortunate, museums and art galleries. For this project, we started looking for the ideal design partner a couple of years ago, and one who could help us bring the best the world has to offer and make it happen right here for our friends and neighbors. This search led us to Diller, Scofidio, and Renfro, one of the preeminent gallery designers in the world. They just completed a major renovation project of the Museum of Modern Art in New York almost exactly a year ago, and have also designed the Broad, a contemporary art museum in Los Angeles, the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston, right on the waterfront, very, very similar to our project, and the US Olympic and Paralympic Museum, which just opened this summer in Colorado Springs. DSNR have a long working relationship with landscape architects Hargreaves Jones, a firm particularly known for their spectacular and engaging waterfront and riverside landscapes across North America and around the world. From works for the Sydney and London Olympics, in Chattanooga, Louisville, or New Orleans, to Zaryadye Park in Moscow or the Tianjin Juilliard School in China, those last two with Diller Scofidio, their designs bring life in all its forms back to neglected or post-industrial waterfronts. Three extraordinary members of our team have been our Mi'kmaq advisory panel: Gerald Glode from Millbrook, Loretta Gould from Wakaba, and Danny Paul from Membertou. They've generously shared their knowledge of the traditions and worldview of Nova Scotia's First People and helped us to see this place as they do, and how we can make this a place where all Nova Scotians feel they belong. And of course, that couldn't be complete without the people who were here at least 12,000 years before anyone else came along. Concepts, as you've heard, the concepts that are being presented here tonight might look final, but they aren't. There's really a lot left to do. Design competitions are a terrific way to start design conversations, but they're not the end of the design process. That involves a lot more talking with the client and user groups, and with community stakeholder groups than can happen in a competition setting. So that vital piece can finally begin after the selection of a consultant team, and we're very pleased to have CoLab on our team to facilitate that engagement process. A number of you will probably know CoLab from some of their project work they've done in Halifax previously for the Central Library, for example, or the North Commons. So we're going to want to hear about how Nova Scotians would shape this place to make it their own. But just as importantly, we want to hear how the development of the Salter Block might mesh with plans other groups have for programs or facilities. Things like the remaining lots on the waterfront, for example, or other components of the arts district, like perhaps a potential performing arts center, or other cultural sites in the city, perhaps the Native Friendship Center, just as one example. But now the main event. We're dying to show you what we've come up with. So it's my pleasure to introduce Elizabeth Diller of Diller, Scofidio, and Renfro to take us through the design principles that underlie the very compelling concept we've developed for this terrific site. Liz.
Okay, thank you, Ron. So the question is, what will be built here? What will thrive here? We imagine an anti-institution, a place that resists formality, that resists hierarchy, a place connected to its environment, a place that is generous, open source, and democratic, a place that catalyzes new cultural dialogue, where creative engagement across various media inspires fresh perspectives, a place that challenges visitors to confront contemporary issues through art. And I'm going to start with a series of design principles that we use to guide this process. Next slide, please. So the Salter Block will remain public, and the new AGNS will be very porous. So this notion of continuous public realm. This ground floor will be barely interrupted between the city and the water's edge, and it will merge with an extensive network of public spaces and destinations along the waterfront. The building's expression and organization is all about inclusivity, the exchange between street, foyer, and boardwalk, inviting locals and visitors to freely traverse, linger, mix with others, and engage with art. And at the same time, the life of the gallery will spill onto public spaces that engage food, education, creation, exhibition, and performance. Mobile galleries and other community initiatives will expand the museum's reach beyond this site. Next slide. And the AGNS and Salter Block will welcome all visitors, whatever the reason for coming here, whether it be to appreciate art, to learn, to play, to relax, or to socialize. Next one. All orientations. The relation between the AGNS and the natural environment of the coastline is extremely important. The building's porosity and its connectivity to the city is as critical, as well as its attention to the irreducible space between the visitor and a work of art, and thus a deeper engagement inward. And this is especially what the building aspires to do, to bridge all that is outward with all that is inward, which is characterized by this first sketch. The building is facing 4 cardinal directions, as well as up to the sky and down to the ground and inward, thus embracing the 7 sacred directions that are foundational to Mi'kmaq and other First Nation cultures. Next. For us, water matters. The site is on the water's edge. It's very special. While museums are typically inwardly focused, this unique site is embraced by the new AGNS. The waterfront will be an extended foyer with views that could be turned on or off in the galleries and event spaces. There are exhibition spaces along the boardwalk. We imagine shoreline activities as well, such as kayaking and outdoor cafe with bar and apple seating. And we imagine also an art barge, a floating platform for art and related activities that can traverse the harbor. Next slide. Light touch. To provide visual and physical access to the water and a variety of public programming at street level, and also to protect priceless artworks from coastal flooding associated with climate change, the building will engage the ground minimally. So we are lifting the galleries up to an elevated level. And this is fully connected with all sorts of vertical connections. But this elevated space for art produces a transparent museum that not only doesn't produce a barrier, but it welcomes everyone from all directions. So it's effectively transparent and an extension from the street. Next. Education and art are everywhere. The activities of the AGNS are not restricted within its walls. Informal hands-on experiences with art and learning are both inside and outside, including encounters with artists in residence at the innovation ateliers, classes in the education studios, artist talks and performances in the lecture theater, deep dives into the collection in the gallery interstitials, outdoor sculpture production in the art yard, and buoyant art displays and arts programming on the floating art barge. This will be all explained a little bit later. Next, so planning with attributes. So when we plan a building for the arts, we have to be conscious of the changing needs of artists and audiences. Thus, a space has to be flexible. But how can a building be flexible without being generic? So rather than thinking about a big flexible open space, we prefer to think about a collection of smaller spaces with varying attributes, such as a space that's daylit or toplit with a diffuse light, or can be turned where the light can be turned off and can be totally controlled and dark. A place that could have white walls and be clean, a place that could be dirty, that artists could feel that they can totally mess up, a space with much more extreme height, a space with more structural capacity to bear very heavy sculptures, a space that has a lot of technological infrastructure, a space with acoustic isolation, a space that open to fresh air, a space with more extensive needs for air and plumbing. So we see this as a kind of architecture of infrastructure in a way. Next slide. Bespoke flexibility. This is a way that we can achieve this bespoke flexibility that is sort of very characteristic of this project. A very versatile collection of galleries that are not overdetermined, each flexible, that could be interpreted by artists and curators. Not every space can do everything. So this is an effort to not reduce galleries to a common denominator. We will have galleries that do many things very well and can be calibrated. Okay, next. Pause. Going to museums can be exhausting. We call this museum fatigue. Museums must allow audiences to have a break, to turn off the near focus and to turn on a distant view, perhaps. And we propose these palette cleansers in between galleries, which provide places to pause and rest, provide views of the surrounding waterfront, and also maybe a deeper dive into the collection through digital archives and catalogs in an informal setting. Next. Visible back of house. People are interested in what's behind the scenes as much as what's on the walls. Paintings on racks, conservation spaces, art being uncrated. This is what we think of as pre-curated art. The new AGNS will engage visitors with the behind the scenes glimpses into the processes of art preservation and curation at the Collections Care Center and visible storage rooms, while its full collection, which is stored off-site, can be accessed, studied, and experienced by the public via mixed reality and interfaces into the gallery, interstitial spaces, and education studios. Next. So contemporary art, by definition, is in constant flux, but architecture is slow, it's geofixed, and it's frozen in time from the moment of its realization. This is actually a problem for many architects that design for art spaces. Our ambition with this very simple public layer at grade, with galleries lifted off the ground, full of intimate spaces, is to be resilient to trends by holding on to some enduring values. One, the democratic space and access to the natural environment. Two, space to assemble for the exchange of ideas, for a changing society and constant flux. And three, space with variety that could be personalized in an intimate setting with art. And intimacy is really key here. The new AGNS building will always appear and should always appear to be fresh in 20 years, in 40 years, despite the perpetual change in its internal artistic content. The new building will be a soft icon on the Halifax Waterfront, and it will be timeless, yet perpetually relevant. So this is a view, a kind of like a preview of what's to come. This building will have a bold presence on the waterfront. It will not be alienating. It will extend a radical welcome to everyone. And it will be conceived. It can't be everywhere or anywhere. It's conceived for this particular place. So to explain this further will be my partner, Ben. We'll take the presentation, the next step.
Thanks, Liz. So this is an amazing site in Halifax. And our design really is interested in the idea of bringing out the layers of history of the site as a way of making a powerful, connected sense of place. So the natural landscape that existed here before the city was here produces a soft edge in our scheme. The kind of vibrant activeness of the working waterfront, the piers, imbues our site with a sense of making and creativity that's very engaging to the public. And the current character of the waterfront as a space of leisure and events and food is something that we'll accentuate and build on. Next. So here's a model view of the Salter block next. And our site, as you know, extends from Lower Water Street at the city out to the boardwalk and north to Salter Street with a small area to the southwest that's taken out for future development for a future project. Next. As Liz mentioned, we want to create this public layer that connects all the way across the site. That's a place that welcomes everybody in, that's a space for everybody, that draws people from the waterfront, people coming from the city, the downtown to the north, people coming from the port, people coming from the university and innovation district. They all feel attracted to converge and pass through the heart of the site and engage with what's going on here. Next. The site as a public realm extending from lower water to the water will be a combination, a mixture of paved hardscape spaces and soft landscape spaces with lots of places to hang out and collect and gather. Next. And we're extending that sense of the public realm across Salter Street to the north to make a really active connection along Salter all the way out to the water that will have places to eat and hang out throughout the day and night in the seasons. Next. Throughout this continuous public level, this public realm from the city to the water are many destinations at the city side, the urban plaza, along the north, as I mentioned, the Salter Promenade, which is a plaza and grove. To the south in the future development site is something we call the art yard or the work yard. It's a space where artists can actively make large works of art and engage the public there. And out in the landscaped areas that Mary Margaret will speak about in just a minute by the boardwalk are lawns, meadows, marshes, and beach, and an art walk or art loop around the boardwalk promenade. Next. This site is framed by indigenous trees to the north and south that create a sense of scale and intimacy across the site. Next. And the foyer or the lobby of the AGNS embeds itself into the site as part of this continuous public realm with really engaging programs, the museum shop, the cafe, innovation space, the lecture theater, and many other places, including a kind of urban living room at its heart that activate and are in constant exchange with the public realm around them. Next. As Liz mentioned, our scheme thinks about touching lightly on the site, that we have these tree columns then that lift the mass of the building up and free up the ground plane, the public layer as much as possible. Next. Overlooking the public layer is the mezzanine level that's truly about spaces that are connected, education spaces, event spaces, public engagement spaces. Next. And then on top of that is a platform that the trees hold up. And that's a kind of a new ground for art that's lifted up above the public realm. And this is where the galleries are located, the space of art and contemplation. So the galleries are forming kind of a village around a central hall. These are divided into two wings. One's a collections gallery to the east, the yellow rooms, and then the temporary collections to the west on the city side. Next. And this just shows the full building massing at a conceptual level integrated with the site. Next. So just reorienting the view that we're looking at to a plan, looking down from the top, seeing the building and the site that we're proposing in the context of the city. Next. If you take a cut at the ground plane at that public level, you see the sort of material and continuous public realm, the character of the spaces, of hard and soft spaces, of a lot of activities and places to engage, entrances from all four sides, so north, south, east, and west, an inviting and comfortable spaces, both indoor and outdoor, places to eat and socialize, to hang out together individually, day or night throughout the seasons. Next. And just a note about the treatment of the site, we've created contours or a very subtle topography. Again, Mary Margaret will speak about this in the landscape section, that slightly elevates the lobby level of the AGNS to above the 100-year floodplain, so that there's a natural flood barrier that protects the building from storm surge and damaged spaces simply by using the topography while still creating a continuous, seamless sense of connection from inside to outside that's barrier-free and universally accessible. Next. So this is an initial sketch of our proposal looking from an aerial view from above to the northeast over the water. Our design will synthesize these historic layers with a landscape that meets the water's edge in a softer, wilder way. It'll have active spaces all around that flow into the AGNS and out from the AGNS to meet the public and engage and animate the public realm. The building itself is formed of tamarack wood and steel. These are the materials that you find in the working waterfront. It's a structure, as I said, which touches down lightly on the land so the public can flow easily into and through it. Next. So I'll do a quick walkthrough of the building. If you're approaching from Lower Water Street, this is our thought about the urban address. Approaching from the west, an entrance where both people and art are dropped off. It's a very active entrance. There's an outdoor arrival plaza and the shop is right there. So it's a very comfortable, engaging place to arrive in the building right off the street at Lower Water. Next. Moving to the north, you see the Salter Street Plaza and Grove as a way of approaching the building along the north. This is a public space that has very restricted vehicle use. So it's mostly about pedestrian life. Next. And here's a little bit closer to the northern entrance of the building. Again, the Salter Plaza and Grove is a very active space day and night with food and events. A lot of people are hanging out. It's very comfortable to be there throughout the seasons. And the northern entrance is a very inviting way into the museum for everybody coming from all directions. Right off the entrance is the Innovation Atelier, which is putting on display the creative energy of artists engaging the public. And above that, on the canopy level, are the education studios. So you would see education activities and art making going on with the public as well. So that becomes part of the image of the building right as you arrive, is the public engaged in creative process with the gallery. Next. This is a zoom in on the ground floor plan. I mentioned that there are 4 entrances. The central hall space is really an urban living room space with a lot of places to sit and hang out, a very clear orientation to information and the way up. And all of the western, northern, and eastern edges wrapping around our public activities and programs that engage with the surrounding landscape and outdoor areas, as well as the interior spaces of this foyer hall. All of the art support activities are in a kind of bar to the south, engaged to Lower Water Street for art delivery and other needs of the building. And that's kind of facing onto the southern development site where the art yard is during the course of our project. Next. So unlike most institutional museums that could have a very soaring, multi-story, sort of overscaled entrance lobby, which to some can be off-putting or intimidating, we imagine a space that's very open and porous to the outside, the landscape, but has a sense of scale that's very comfortable, that's intimate. It's inviting to people who are young and old of all backgrounds to come and just hang out day or night, whether they're there to see art or not. It's a space that's animated by education, by art, and by food, and just simply by other people as a kind of social space. And in the background here, you see the way up. Next slide. At the heart of the building is a sculptural tree stair, we call it, and elevators, which are daylit from the top and draws the public up to the mezzanine and to the gallery levels above. Next. So here's a view at the mezzanine level before you get up to the gallery level. This is a level that's defined by events and education spaces that are very engaged with the public and visible from the public realm below. Next. At this level, this is the mezzanine plan. So looking at the cut at the second level, again, education spaces in a kind of a suite or an array to the north, really almost forming a canopy over the entrance to the north that's very visible to the public as you arrive from there. To the east are the multi-purpose room and the lecture theater flanking a garden court, which is a beautiful outdoor space within the footprint of the building. Seminar rooms and group orientations in the central hall. And then on the city side are our collections care, which is art support and administrative spaces, very connected to the public and to the city as well. Next. The education spaces, so this is sort of looking south back into that central hall space from an education studio. And we imagine these as messy spaces. The spaces have a lot of creative energy where families and kids can be there both learning about art and creating it. Next. The lecture theater, which is in the southeast corner, has a picture window view onto the harbor. So a really beautiful place to be. And that can have a lot of flexibility in the terms of the way presentations are made there. Next, including that it can be blacked out or switched off to create a full immersive media environment for lectures and other forms of media presentation. Next. And then just a vignette of the northeast corner where the multi-purpose space is. And this is a space in the daytime that's really great for education and meetings. But it has this kind of panoramic view of the harbor and Dartmouth across the way. And at nighttime, it's a really inviting and wonderful place to have parties and events. Next. And then heading up from the mezzanine level up to the galleries level where the art is, you continue along the way up the tree stair and elevators, and you arrive in the central hall, which is a daylit, washed with clear story light space that's very luminous and inviting. It has a large lounge space on the west end and a lot of perches and places for the public to break out of the gallery tour if they need a break. On the left-hand side, you see live or art storage. That's the temporary collection storage, visible to the public to see. Next. So this is a plan at the level of all of the gallery rooms. It's formed in two wings. On the east end to the right are the collections galleries, and that's the traditional art that the museum has. And it forms a continuous loop through every space, ending up where across the hall from where it started. On the west end is the temporary galleries, and those are larger, more contemporary, suited to traveling exhibitions and newer art that's on loan to the museum, with a black box gallery to the north. And the central hall space, again, are the lounge and the stairwell and the garden court. In the collections galleries are also a series of smaller rooms, which are presentation spaces and interstitial spaces between the gallery rooms that are really nice spaces to just break out and look at art closely or have a pause between galleries. And there's a lot of access to outdoor terraces and other spaces along the way to get a palate cleanser, those pause spaces that Liz mentioned. Next. So I'm going to show 4 gallery rooms. We're not able to show all of them, but this is the Maud Lewis gallery, which is dedicated to the Nova Scotian artist Maud Lewis, who's a painter as well. The reconstruction of her house is a work of art that's part of the AGNS collections. And this gallery has a large picture window to the east looking over the harbor where the public can actually look in and see this reconstructed house for free as part of what's on display to the public, as well as creating a beautiful view out. Next. The Oculus Gallery, there are 2 of these within the collections gallery suite, series of spaces. There's a circular aperture up at the roof that looks towards the northern sky and brings soft light in, creates a really ethereal sense of connection to the sky and the environment outside as you're viewing landscape and traditional paintings as well as contemporary ones. Next. And then the top lit temporary gallery is an overhead diffuse daylight gallery that's really great for contemporary art and sculpture. It's just a tough, robust gallery that is a great place to show any kind of new work. And it has a connection out onto a sculpture terrace to the northwest. Next. The Black Box Gallery is a technical studio space for presenting performance and time-based art. And it as well has a picture window that looks, in this case, towards downtown to the north. And again, that's a window that could be blacked out or switched off next to show immersive media and performance presentations. So zooming out of the building, this is just sort of as though you're in a drone flying backwards towards the water, and you see the kind of village of galleries that we were talking about and all the adjacent outdoor terrace and spaces you can access outside, as well as spaces of view. Next. In addition to the spaces of the gallery at the top of the building, the whole public realm has a network of free art spaces, an art walk or an art loop that's embedded throughout the public realm. Next. So including the boardwalk and the walks along the eastern edge of the building are this art loop, and it has outdoor galleries, it has a permanent stage for performance, it connects to our art yard to the south, it connects up to the garden court and the overlook that's within the footprint of the museum building, and includes the art barge that Liz mentioned previously that can go literally taking art or performance across the harbor to other locations. Next. Among the things of the art loop is the permanent stage showing a dance performance in the daytime. Next. And that's also a good place for the smudging ceremony. Next. Also, there's the public way, free and clear, up to the garden court and overlook. Next. And here's the approach to that from across the lawn. You see at the eastern entrance, the stair that goes up to that overlook space. Next. Here's zooming in on that. You see the stair ascending. You see an aperture to the sky that's free to the public to go to this garden court space, and the stair continuing up to the right. Next. And finally, well, so this is a view of the very immersive kind of intimate space of the garden court, open to the public in the heart of the museum building. Next. And finally, the overlook at the top, which is a great place to take in the harbor for free for the public, but also a place to overlook performances and events and other kinds of festivals going on the waterfront. I'm going to turn over now to Mary Margaret to talk about the design of the landscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Go ahead. So as Liz said, we want to make sure that this project is resonant with this place. So we look back at the history of the site, and we know this place was settled in the 1600s, but we found this rendering of the settlement in the 1750. Next. And this late 1800s view of the harbor itself. So our site in this view. Next. And we are particularly struck by the shoreline condition, the rocks and the trees coming right to these sandy beaches. Next. Which really is revealed as intrinsic to the native settlements that happened here. This watercolor from 1812 shows this was their livelihood, this was their source of food, economy, if you will, and also shelter with this rocky shoreline and trees at the beach edge. Next. So we look to these images of the coastline as we think about recreating an indigenous landscape on this site. And this looks like a very rugged landscape, and it is. There's storms, there's sea, there's all of that dynamic action happening, but it's also a very fragile ecosystem, and the one that we want to recreate on the site. Next. Next. So Halifax lies at a very interesting place of eco-district intersections, if you will. So we're in the Eastern Interior Eco-District, but we're close to the bay, the St. Margaret's Bay Eco-District, and the Eastern Shore. So we're close to a coastline as well. Next. So we look at those hints and working with our Mi'kmaq advisors, coming up with these ecosystems to reflect on the site, these typologies, from a mixed maritime Acadian forest to the heathlands with the rocks and the barrens that then transition down to the water's edge, where there are salt marshes, sandy beaches, both of which host very rich marine ecosystem life. Next. So those ecosystem types informed the landscape that we propose on the site. So the Salter Street Grove creates a series of outdoor rooms, much like the rooms of the galleries themselves, that can be used in flexible ways. And the landscape there is indicative of the Acadian forest, including the ground plane, including the understory. The butterfly meadows along the boardwalk and the water's edge will play host to butterflies, birds, and have beech trees, or rather aspen trees, so that we are reflecting the wind as one of the elements that influences the site. The Indigenous Gardens are made of plants that were part of the Mi'kmaq cultural use for medicine and for ceremonies, and that will be they'll be beautiful, and it will be a great learning environment at this eastern entrance to the museum. And then, of course, the tidal marsh, the living shoreline, the beach, and this very rich landscape that supports so much life, from crabs to gray blue herons. Next. So you see in this aerial view, this bird's eye view, the idea of water to water, water street to waterfront, or city core to city shore, if you will. And we took that edge and we rattled it, and we pushed and we pulled, so that there are fingers of land that extend out into the water and bays of water that extend into the land, so that we create a varied landscape of rich ecosystem types. And we make legible the forces of nature and the tidal movement on the site. Next. So looking southeast, from the boardwalk, where you're really sort of entering the site, you see the butterfly meadow to your left. You see the open lawn, the large open lawn in the distance. You see a performance on the permanent stage, and people using the site in a variety of ways. As it's been said before, this needs to feel good for 20 or 5,000 or for one. Next. Salter Street Grove is in a place in the distance. You see the entry to the museum. It's a place that can be set up very easily for festival booths or day-to-day, as you see here, with the concession building in the background for back of house, restrooms, and support retail. Next. And then looking from the boardwalk across the tidal marsh, across the open lawn. So on the boardwalk, you're in this very active environment, but next to you is you're immersed in this very quiet environment of the tidal marsh. So this contrast will be very dynamic. Next. And then the living shoreline and the beach, and looking back, so that you can actually get close to the water. You can touch the water. Sean will talk about how we're using geothermal exchange to actually warm the water here. And by having this access to the water within the boardwalk and the existing batarams, it's more easily accessed, touched, and used. Next. So the site is also set up very well. The design is set up very well for small events using the permanent stage that's next to the cafe. So you can imagine sitting in the cafe and listening to music, or sitting out on the lawn and watching the performance. So 500 people easily, and you see the concession building as back of house support, the entrance and the security, and of course the boardwalk remaining free and open to everyone. Next. Or for large events for 5,000 people. Egress and ingress, very important for access for stage setup, as well as for ticketed ticket holders, as well as for VIP coming along that south entrance. And then the expansion of a festival all throughout the Salter Plaza and Grove. And again, the boardwalk open and free to all, the cheap seats, if you will. Next. So it's very important that we think about the way the water interacts with the site. We make legible these daily tides, these ebbs and flows of the water. So you can see in these three cross sections in a current conditions, high and low tide, and how much fluctuation you have on the site. And so that really does make a living exhibition it adds to the art exhibitions of the gallery. Next. And in the year 2070, we still have these landscape fingers. We've created an absorptive landscape. So we allow these ebbs and flows of the water. We accept them, and we still have these fingers of landscape that will be dry on a daily basis, even in 2070. Next. So speaking of high water, this view shows you spring. So in the spring, you've got high waters, you've got the flowers coming out, you're able to come out, you're able to really experience this tidal pool that will again be warmed by geothermal exchange with the building. So you are beginning to experience the site, and the next slide shows the full flush of summer when you can really inhabit every inch of the site and embrace the summer season, being able to get to the water safely or step back from the water if you prefer. Next. And in the fall, this Acadian forest landscape, the understory is particularly aromatic, and the colors are particularly dramatic in this landscape, and the birch trees, etc. So it will be very exciting both for day-to-day use and for festivals in the fall. And then finally, of course, winter. And we see this as being a year-round experience. This landscape will be beautiful, even in the winter with the branches and the twigs. It will still continue to host some wildlife, but also people. So fire pits, smudging ceremonies, put up an ice rink in the Salters Plaza Grove for ice skating. And of course, you still have the boardwalk and the art walk. So with that, I'd like to turn it to Sean Gallagher, who's going to talk about sustainability.
Thanks, Mary Margaret. Hello, everybody. So the Halifax community has had a strong 2050 plan for a sustainable future. Our design really focuses on 4 primary initiatives that are part of that plan, being health, water, comfort, and community. And starting with water, the Nova Scotia's coastline is what really gives it its unique character and beauty. And our design begins with restoring those native ecosystems that have evolved over the millennium to work with the natural forces of the Atlantic Ocean. Next. This type of living shoreline, which Mary Margaret was talking about, allows for landscape design to buffer, absorb, adapt, but most importantly, evolve naturally over time and become a place specific to the changes that are happening in our climate. Next. The museum is then lifted above this ground, this living shoreline, organized in 3 distinct layers, anticipating times of extreme weather. The public entry plazas and lobbies are at an elevation on a plinth that absorbs and redirects the energy of the surge. Then the public gathering and teaching spaces are placed on the 2nd level and can act as areas of shelter and storage in preparation for a storm. While at the top of the museum are the permanent galleries that can maintain humidity and temperature control throughout long periods of disrupted services. Next. But the health of the people and the local ecosystems are critical to our design thinking. And we have introduced new types of human infrastructure that actively participate with the natural environment to benefit the health of the overall community. The design integrates a floating gallery habitat that serves as a place to showcase emerging art, as well as remediate oyster, mussel, and kelp colonies at the harbor's edge. Then along the building's perimeter, we have designed a living machine wetland that actively treats the gray water from the museum to provide a clean source of fresh water for the fragile brackish ecosystem. Next. Today, our exterior enclosure systems can be designed to develop mutually beneficial relationships between the building, conditioning systems, and the natural environment. And each one of the gallery boxes is uniquely designed to showcase how facade assemblies can collect and clean water, filter and reduce smog from air, absorb and redirect the energy from the sun, and embed and sequester carbon within its material composition. Next. These galleries were designated with an assembly typology based on their site orientation and the program inside. Areas of the design that bring in fresh air use catalytic coatings to help purify the air naturally, while galleries that are facing south harvest the solar energy and use it for the program's interior and sides of lighting and other activities, while the wood cladding system treated naturally through an ancient art of Sogi Shuban to extend the lifespan of carbon-based materials well over 100 years. And together, this collection of galleries resulted in a visitor experience that demonstrates how we are becoming smarter in the ways that we build today. Finally, our design aspires to become a catalyst for forming energy exchanges within its community. We have designed passive thermal exchanges with the harbor that anticipate future development on the adjacent site to share in this renewable resource. We have also designed for waste biofuel exchanges with the neighborhood, support industries to sustain comfort in our outdoor activities longer into solar seasons, as Mary Margaret was showing. In the end, this is what it's all about, really. Using a diversity of strategies to remediate and reduce our overall community's footprint in order to slow the biosphere changes of our climate. So we have time to adapt and continue to enjoy this world around us. And with that, I'll give it back to Ben Gilmartin to bring this full circle.
Okay, well, thank you very much to the team of Architecture 49 with Diller, Scofidio, Renfro, and Hargreaves Jones. I want to apologize. We've had a few little audio glitches at the beginning. I guess this is just life on Zoom. We're all getting used to that, but I think we're in good shape now. I want to take this opportunity while we get the next team up and ready to present to let you all know you can spend more time viewing this work in person, either at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, just downstairs in the gallery on the main floor, or again at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia.ca website. In the gallery, you're going to find a physical exhibition featuring 3D models, renderings, video content from each of the teams. The physical exhibition is free to the public and will be on display through the month of October. The exhibition is open daily from 12 to 5, and on Thursdays it'll be open till 9 p.m. in the evening. While visiting, we want you to help shape the future of art in Nova Scotia by providing your feedback on the final 3 conceptual designs. And the feedback will be used by the winning team as they shape the final design and prepare to engage further with Nova Scotians. Again, if you're not able to make it into the gallery, there is also a digital exhibition of the work which can be found online at artgalleryofnovascotia.ca. There, visitors can also see the architectural drawings, video animations, and design documents in a virtual setting, and you can then submit feedback through an online form. Okay, so now we're going to get back to the evening's presentations. Hopefully we're ready for the second team you'll be hearing from, and that is DIALOG, Acre Architects, Brackish Design Studio, Shannon, Webb-Campbell. Please note this presentation is going to begin with a video prior to us hearing from Jody James from DIALOG. So are we ready to go? Couple more seconds, couple more minutes. We're just teeing things up. Ready to go. Thanks.
Their worldview is a new home in an ancient land. If you think you can hold dominion over flora and fauna, that a body and life can be property, you'd better try buying a constellation. I'm not landless nor law. In sorrow's aftermath, remind me. I am a body of land unlearning what cannot be expressed. Dig to find a physical knowing, ceremony. Our cells remind us we are living in the intersection of trauma and desire, a disordered state. How can we imagine ourselves not broken? Set vowels and variables, open to 7 generations before and after.
Thank you for welcoming us into yours. I can imagine for the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, Develop Nova Scotia, and the provincial team that it's been an exhilarating but exhausting few months. And for all Nova Scotians, especially in light of the massive and sweeping changes to the world this past year, tonight marks a huge moment, one where we can really lean into imagining what a new and better future could look like together. So, before we get started, a sincere thank you to the competition organizing team, to our fellow colleagues presenting tonight, and to the many communities for all of the time and the thought and the investment collectively poured into this process to date. This moment has been a long time coming, and we are so glad to be here tonight. My name is Jody James, and I am a member of the architectural design team, and I am proud to introduce something to you that's a little bit different. This evening, we bring forward a design collective, 12 voices present to articulate a deep and rich approach to the new Art Gallery of Nova Scotia and Waterfront Arts District. 12 voices which represent contributions from a much larger team, one with a diversity of experience, with multiple viewpoints, with intense curiosity and insatiable determination, and one that has a level of participation and democracy and collaboration built into it. A diverse, heterogeneous city like Halifax, particularly at this moment in time, it needs a collective, a new way of doing to bring forward a design vision that lives up to new ways of thinking. Assembling a collective was our way to bring together a powerhouse team, each person the very best at what they do. The amazing part is that in the end, we didn't have to look far from home. Acre Architects, Brackish Design Studio, Shannon Webb-Campbell, these emerging voices are deeply connected to and invested in this place. There's no room for anything less. Our teammates at Englobe, Jensen Hughes, RJ Bartlett and Hanscombe, they bring an understanding of Nova Scotia that's second to none. And all of our friends outside of Atlantic Canada, DIALOG, Charcoal Blue, Local Projects, and Tillotson Design have lived the experience of delivering groundbreaking cultural and community-driven projects all over the world. For the last 9 months, we've met twice a week, every week, and sometimes upwards of 40 of us were on the line. Our process was rigorous because we were after something great. And our presentation tonight is a distillation of those many conversations leading up to today. You've asked us to present our proposed design. Today, each of the 12 voices have selected one story to share about the project that's important to us. This may not look like a typical presentation, and we may not look like a typical team, but this is how we create change. And though we're here to speak to Nova Scotians about their art gallery and waterfront, it's worth taking a moment to stand back and recognize that what we're all talking about is not just local in its reach. Spaces for co-creation, privileging a free and inclusive ground floor, resilience through new site ecologies, climate positivity, and a responsibility to 7 generations. By being radically invested in people, together we have the moxie and the moment right now to do something groundbreaking, to rethink an art gallery as an essential service. Nova Scotia's very own has the capacity to create a seismic change in how institutions help people to truly create sea change. So let's begin with words from our collective's North Star, lead design architect, Monica Adair.
Thank you, Jody. You called for an arts district. Our response is the People's Gallery. We are guided by first light. The result is sea change. The design brief for the AGNS and the Arts District is an ambitious document. Nova Scotia, you truly asked us to dream big. I'm honored to be part of an exceptional collective of passionate, locally rooted, and globally experienced talent. And I believe that together, we have created something magical. When I co-founded Acre Architects, we set a vision to change the world by creating transformational stories from here in Atlantic Canada. This project has the ambition and aspirations to do just that, to create meaningful change. To begin our design process, our collective co-authored a book called Open Invitation, where we came to the project with questions, not answers. One question that resonated with our team was, should we be building a gallery? How do we build a global institution in a time when galleries and artists struggle to find financially stable and inclusive models of existence? Or when we face global challenges of living through a pandemic, and when the inequities, poverty, and the injustices of the world seem to continue to compound? Should we be building a gallery? Absolutely, but only if it embodies the aspirations set out by our client, that this project would care for the artists, its people, and this place. Our response is the People's Gallery. The People's Gallery turns the notion of a gallery inside out, a seamless connection between where water starts and art begins. The entire ground plane, indoors and out with its rooftop, are devoted to new forms of cultural expression and art making that break from the traditional mold of the public art institution. The People's Gallery champions artists and supports our most marginalized voices. This is a place where all are welcome, while creating a safe and inviting place where all Nova Scotians can see themselves and the world can learn about Nova Scotia. We invite you to experience the Arts District, the People's Gallery, to hear stories that were brought to life, inspired by your thoughts, ideas, and voices. We explored what it meant to create an authentic sense of place through the arts, to truly make a place of belonging for the people of Nova Scotia and by Nova Scotians. You called to make membership accessible, and we took that to heart. The entire ground plane and the rooftop are an extension of the boardwalk, where art is everywhere. The People's Gallery is where people, nature, culture, and art intersect in new and unexpected ways. At the heart of the project and the center of the eddy is the People's Theatre, where you can wear your rubber boots to a show. The space aims to give center stage to the most marginalized voices through the Voice in Residence program. This gallery lobby isn't your typical lobby. It's an extension of the Harbor Walk, and you're invited to the open kitchen, the Cayley stage, and to be part of the community's makers table, where no one sits alone. The People's Gallery strives to broaden the definition of art. Prime spaces are devoted to cultural entrepreneurship programs, such as the Hair Salon Weaving Culture on Lower Water Street, dedicated to supporting African art making culture. As forms of cultural expression, hairdressing and cosmetology speak to a larger tradition of adornment and fashion design. This is a great opportunity for the People's Gallery to broaden all types of partnerships that support and recognize broader cultural expressions of art from throughout Nova Scotia, in ways that they can be actively highlighted both inside and outside of the gallery walls. You might be familiar with Halifax's lower deck, its upper deck, and now it has its covered deck on the waterfront. With over 140 rainfall days in Halifax, the covered deck is the underbelly of the AGNS, where outdoor shows, exhibitions, and performances of any scale can take place in shelter. The Harbor Walk flows to and from the Salt Yard to Bishop's Landing through the underbelly of the gallery, nicknamed the Belly of the Whale, and it's reminiscent of Nova Scotia's boat building traditions. The warm glow of this illuminated space makes a most welcoming destination on the foggiest, rainiest, or snowiest of days, while providing the largest and most inviting covered performance space on this waterfront. And the People's Gallery is also full of play. Imagine exploring the Driftwood Park, a place where nature and sculpture intersect, or hanging with the buoys at the swing park for the young at heart. Some will spend an afternoon learning about birch bark canoe making at the canoe launch near the water's edge before taking in an evening at the fireside chats. Our ecology highlights our vital connection to each other and our physical environment. Art is an ecosystem. For an urban adventure, climb the colorful sea smoke staircase to George's Island Lookout that overlooks the Great Harbor, giving the community a place of both prospect and retreat, a view too often relegated on waterfronts for just the privileged. An equally spirited accessible experience is to take the modified elevator, where you're transported inside Maud Lewis's home. In this elevator, you're invited to delight in the color, charm, and cheer of Canada's most beloved folk artist, as you digitally paint the walls of the elevator that you take up to George's Island Lookout. Whether you're pulled into the People's Gallery from first light or on the green, or meandering along the Lost River leading to the Africville Bridge. The space throughout the AGNS grounds is where community can learn about local histories, ecology, marine and plant life, medicines and herbs, and things we need to do better. The People's Gallery celebrates the depth and breadth of Nova Scotia's rich cultural history, from l'Esprit de l'Acadie that runs deep in Nova Scotia to newcomers to Halifax. Their voices can find home and where we can see ourselves in this place. What Nova Scotia creates Nova Scotia. You called for an arts district. Our response is the People's Gallery. We are guided by first light. The result is sea change. I'm honored to present our team poet, Shannon Webb-Campbell, member of the Halibu Mi'kmaq First Nation and editor of Visual Arts News, and all-around magical thinker.
Well, I'm Monica. When did you last see the sun come up and feel the light? Every sunrise is an opportunity for a new day, a moment of transformation. Daybreak offers a chance for awakening, and the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia's first light invites us to our consciousness. It reconnects us to the Earth's rhythm, a means to discover dawn within ourselves and in one another, as light, much like art, connects us. New ways of thinking begin with the AGNS. The AGNS's first light registers, but it's not a clock. First light marks the dawn, the beginning of twilight before sunrise. The dominant tempo of our society is an imposed clock of governance, a rhythm where time is lost. Mi'kmaq peoples since time immemorial have lived with the sun. Fishermen for centuries have been on the water as the light comes up. And many of the early risers are bonded by witnessing its beauty. The cycle of the day are not the hours of operation, and the AGNS is connecting to a greater construct of time that signals a new beginning, our chance to make a change in this world. First light gives us a moment around the eddy of our lives, a 30-second pause when all the lights turn off in the gallery at daybreak every morning to honor sunrise. A reset to reflect on the ever-changingness of our world and a means of connecting to past, present, and future generations. First light extends beyond the form. It's the ethos of our project. It reconnects us to the land, sky, water, and each other. It's my pleasure to introduce to you landscape architect Sandra Cook of Brackish Design Studio.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm going to tell you about the Lost River's journey to the Great Harbor, known by our team as How Peggy Meets Eddie. This is a story of a landscape shaped by water and inspired by the beloved landscapes of this place, the rocks of Peggy's Cove, the dunes of South Shore beaches, the salt marshes found along our coast. The People's Gallery is the open, accessible ground plane, and it begins with the site. The building touches down on the site in two places and hovers over the ground as it reaches toward first light. The landscape, building, and water are carefully interwoven to blur boundaries between inside and out, between land and sea, forming a new waterfront habitat for all peoples and coastal creatures. Water is used to organize, to connect, and to create a range of coastal landscapes which are unique to our region. Water in this landscape registers change over time, enhances biodiversity, and activates the site through all seasons and all times of day. We begin with a nod to a freshwater stream, which we discovered once flowed where Salter Street now lies and has long since been buried. Our design uncovers this lost river. Starting as a small rift in the pavement at Lower Water Street, it opens up as it flows toward the harbor. This feature is a gateway to the site, a public art venue, an informal seating area, and a stormwater bioswale. The Lost River connects the city to the waterfront and leads visitors to First Light as it joins with the harbor, first in the tide pool with its rocks reminiscent of Peggy's Cove, then to the Great Harbor and the tidal quilt salt marsh. Our landscape swirls around the building like an eddy with the People's Theater at its center, leading visitors through a multitude of landscapes. This eddy encourages people to diverge off the boardwalk, to slow down, to climb and play in Driftwood Park or hang with the buoys, a recognizable feature in any maritime backyard, gather on the sunrise green, birdwatch on the tidal quilt, touch the water at the canoe launch, or visit the interior gallery spaces. The Harbor Walk is one of our city's busiest pedestrian corridors, and we've brought it through the building, the belly of the whale, creating a new front door to the city from the water side, an open invitation to the art gallery and the arts district. Each of these spaces on their own are worth a visit, whether you're looking for a quiet contemplative garden or a bustling covered urban plaza, the only one of its kind along the waterfront. This is a place for every season. Taken together, these spaces form an infinitely flexible ground plane that can host programs ranging from jazz fest concerts to citizen science days, outdoor art fairs, to poetry readings. The landscape is a framework to be shaped by the community and by artists. The building and the waterfront become a new ecology where people, plants, animals, water, geology, and art form an interconnected system. The result is a people's gallery that is welcoming, safe, and accessible to all. It connects people with each other and with nature through art. The result is sea change. I'd now like to introduce our team's art gallery design specialist, Robert Claiborne.
Thank you, Sandra. You've set the bar for the art gallery quite high, and our response really reaches for those ambitions. Our design for the art gallery is as much a site collaborator as it is a site response. It's creating a public space and a cultural gathering place right on the harbor. And it's a meeting place for the citizens of Nova Scotia and for visitors from around the world. It's a connector between the city and the water, between public space and art. The art gallery is also a space for reflecting on our present circumstances in this increasingly complex world. We see the need for new relationships between one another, between art and its many current and future publics, and between the built and natural worlds. Embedded in this project's ambitions is an architecture that inspires all of us. The gallery is so much more than a container or a repository. It is a living laboratory of experience, cultural awareness, and exploration. The project creates opportunities to connect with new, more diverse and younger audiences. And it allows for visitors to explore and engage with art and craft and life in Nova Scotia in new ways. In doing so, the architecture invites a new civic engagement by opening the gallery to the community and the public realm, making it accessible, approachable, and visible. This architecture has a strong civic impact and positions the gallery as a cultural catalyst for realizing the full potential of the community and the province, with art always at its core. The building begins at the corner of Lower Water and Salter Streets with a confident and recognizable presence. As it progresses towards the harbor, it shifts and evolves from a formal expression to one that is informal, open, and embracing of the future. By engaging the site, program, and context, the project really does express a greater, more equal and inclusive cultural meaning. Formally, the project takes cues from sea smoke, the fog. This gently flowing blanket envelops the harbor, the boardwalk, and the buildings with a soft light that harmonizes the colors and textures of the land and the water. The building responds to the sea smoke by gently moving and undulating along its length. The building is also a bridge between the past and the future, from a recognizable architecture to a more fluid and dynamic form of openness and inclusivity. It's also a literal bridge as the galleries are lifted above the ground plane for protection from climate change, from rising seas, and from storm surge. This bridge creates the covered entry and the plaza area, the belly of the whale. This plaza is part of the People's Gallery and is continuous from the landscape and the boardwalk through the theater and into the lobby. The People's Gallery is a democratizing, inclusive, and polyphonic space that is both the entry, a place for events, a place for play, and a place for critical dialogue. It is a space of inclusion, a place where everyone is welcome and everyone is comfortable. This is where you find the theater, the People's Theater, and the heart of the Arts District. It literally anchors the galleries above. This highly flexible theater and performance space opens on 3 sides. It opens to the water, it opens to the landscape, and it opens to the plaza. The theater accommodates concerts, performances, presentations, exhibitions, special events, all the while interacting with the activity taking place outside. The theater functions with or independently from the galleries and provides access to the multi-purpose rooms and the roof terrace above. Opposite the theater is the main lobby. This is an exceptionally lively space with community programming, atelier, education, art, food, and making. From this double height gallery, the galleries are immediately evident above. Your gaze is naturally drawn upward. And to what? To a light filtering down onto the Maud Lewis house for all to see and experience upon entering. By placing Maud's house as the introduction to the art galleries, this project becomes, in a way, an open embrace for all Haligonians. And with that, I give you my colleague, Donna Clare.
Thank you, Robert. We're now going to take you on a walk through the galleries, the hardworking spaces that excite me the most. As Robert mentioned, from the People's Gallery in the lobby, your eye is drawn upward, connecting to the gallery floors that hover over the landscape, inviting you up to experience and immerse yourself in art, to see Maud and the works from this, new works from this community, this country, and around the world, to look forward and to look back, to discover interconnections. Like the harbor piers and the boardwalk, the galleries are straightforward and intuitive, spaces that can evolve, transform in size, shape, and form to support the curation of an amazing collection of artwork. And you are an active participant. Feel free to stroll, to create your own path, to make it your own journey and connect to the artwork and to this place, the city, the water, the sky, and the land, and importantly, to each other through art. The care of the collections, the workshops, and the curatorial spaces are interwoven with the artwork. They share the same floors. You can see into the workshops, witness acts of making, conserving, and restoring, see crates being unpacked, and the making of an exhibit. The work of the art gallery is revealed, demystified. The permanent collections are your first encounter. The Maud Lewis House and Gallery greet you on arrival. The permanent galleries unfold, networked and non-hierarchical, yours to discover. Within the galleries, there are places of respite, places to sit as an individual or as a collective, to contemplate or to engage. There are unique and unexpected ways to connect to this place. A high window frames views of the sky, washes the space with soft natural light. Convention breaks down, you see in a new way. The temporary gallery floor, much like the permanent gallery, is a simple linear form, as intuitive as the boardwalk, a flexible space to accommodate the expected and the unexpected, an invitation to wander, to see, to learn, and to understand your place in new ways. And a black box gallery is as much a place of performance as it is for display. The Sky Gallery is a very special place, a 40-foot high gallery looking up to the sky, a place to showcase the most demanding of contemporary art and to inspire new works of art. You journey toward first light, the east-facing gallery capturing the sunrise across the season from solstice to solstice. This is an expansive space looking to the horizon. Feel the power of this unique and special place, its artists and their artwork. And to fully appreciate, as our Indigenous peoples have taught us, that we are intrinsically linked to nature and to the seasons, to each other and to the rhythm of time, to home and to the world. This is a place of creative, transformative energy where we feel our cultural commitment to the land. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to Jake Barton, our exhibit design specialist.
Thank you, Donna. Thrilled to be here. Lobko Projects has had the privilege of working on international projects aimed at serving their local audiences as partners in planning, design, and after opening. For AGNS, we want to co-create leveraging active local participation as part of the design process. During this era of COVID, we've been pioneering digital forms of mass engagement, including using techniques such as online heat mapping or in-person pod workshops to determine how locals would co-create their own design vision. Gathering a core audience of evaluation and advisor panels can also allow us to continue that in-person or online feedback process into the design interactions. This ensures that we're building a people's gallery visitor experience with the people at the forefront of that work. Now, once it's built, the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia becomes the central space for locals and tourists to blend, and it continues to respond to the people as they gather and connect together in the larger arts district. Off the cover deck, you have an open invitation to take a seat at the community makers table. And unlike a traditional art museum experience, here you are greeted right at the beginning with the immediate opportunity to create, to connect, and to share. This embodies our belief that we can all discover that we're all creative beings. It's a central space and a connective tissue for the interior and the exterior of the building. Also within our design, a visually dynamic digital cultural calendar that updates and responds to the community. Come and be part of the community hub for locals, tourists, artists, makers, thinkers, students, art admirers, musicians, and activists. This space is a platform to continue our community co-creation, encouraging the community to curate the creative arts, from artists to art goers, venues to galleries, and visitors to the wider content for Halifax and Nova Scotia at large. And now I introduce you with pleasure to Cale Harper of Acre Architects. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. I want to talk to you about folk and folklore, and more specifically about ghost ships, colorful fish gills, and the whale that swallowed Maud. The story goes that as the fog rolls into the Halifax harbor, the buildings disappear like a ghost ship, revealing only the warmly lit underbelly of the People's Gallery, signaling a place of home and shelter. It has also been said that Maud's house was swallowed by the belly of a whale, and that if you approach the gallery from Lower Water Street, you can see the colors of her painted house, almost like gills on a fish, shimmering within. In reality, the building's material approach is simple and practical. At the people scale, the undulating wood underbelly of the covered deck is inspired by the local boat building skills and traditions. Low in embodied carbon, the source is locally harvested CFI wood. The wood hull fosters a comforting and welcoming sense of place. Drawing on principles of biophilic design, the People's Gallery is an expression of inclusivity, openness, belonging, and well-being. Where there are people, there is wood. The majority of the building's facade is comprised of flat and bent metal gavaloon panels. Gavaloon is familiar to anyone that has taken a drive along the Annapolis Valley or meandered through Cape Breton Island, where countless shimmering gavaloon farms roofs can be spotted speckled throughout the landscape and is indicative of the vernacular and ethos of the buildings that are considered part of Nova Scotia's regional culture. Chosen for its simplicity, durability, and minimal environmental footprint, this approach will support a workforce of skilled trade roofers and metal fabricators in Nova Scotia that are able to step into the build to supply and install this familiar material. Much like the gills of a fish, our gavaloon panels lay flat against the building at the harbor's edge, but begin to lift more and more as they approach Lower Water Street. Opening up towards the city, they reveal a spectrum of bright and vibrant colors. Because of this, even on a clear day, it is hard to agree on exactly what the AGNS looks like, since the appearance of the building is so dramatically different depending on your vantage point. From the boardwalk, the reflective gavaloon panels take on the shimmering quality of the waterfront. But from Lower Water Street, the color is revealed. The AGNS becomes as playful and whimsical as Maud's own work, a colorful, billowing sail that intentionally draws you towards the gallery's main entrance, a celebration of art on the Halifax Waterfront. This is as much a nod to the folk art displayed within the AGNS as it is to Nova Scotia's history of vibrantly painted houses, its tartans, its celebrated pride parades, its buoys, and its Indigenous art. After all, Nova Scotians are a colorful bunch. With that, I'd like to hand it over to our urban design lead, Joost Bakker.
Thanks, Cale. In the same way that the Art Gallery and Arts District reach out to the harbor and First Light and the harbor reach back into the city and Lower Water Street. reconnecting them with the city's historic grid pattern. Lower Water Street marked the original harbor shoreline, and our project directly acknowledges this historic fact with the uncovering of the Lost River that flowed into the ocean, as Sandra indicated. Historically, the Salter Block itself had multiple buildings that fronted directly onto Lower Water Street. We have consciously designed Lower Water Street to support the city's aspiration to revitalize the street's character and to reanimate pedestrian activity along its length. Throughout the whole site, on the surrounding streets, within the gallery, we have designed places for commercial activation and arts incubation. This is so important in order to support the needs of the art gallery, the developed Nova Scotia, and artists during these difficult times in this COVID era. Our cultural institutions struggle financially with less visitors, less tourists, no cruise ships. We certainly experienced this directly here in my own hometown of Vancouver. To the north of Salter Street, we propose a new arts market, a whole series of converted container kiosks for artisans, visitors, and food outlets. Salter Street itself has been designed as a pedestrian priority street. It will allow for visitor drop-offs, tour buses, school buses. The Headland Plaza has been redesigned as a pedestrian priority street in order to create a more comfortable approach to the building. The Headland Plaza is the arrival threshold to both the gallery and the Lost River. The very tall art gallery entry on the corner also serves as a light beacon leading to the harbor itself. The whole west face of the gallery creates a street wall that reinforces the scale and character of Lower Water Street. It steps down as you move to the south and the future development site to the south. Two new retail outlets and art gallery loading area contribute to the animation of the whole street. Finally, as you arrive at Maker's Lane, and there you get a very dramatic view back into the highly sculptural Sky Gallery and the harbor itself. Given the relative infrequency of major art load-ins, we have created the shipping yard. This will be a very popular pop-up space that is able to accommodate multiple and varied cultural events throughout the year. Next to it is the cultural entrepreneurship retail outlet. And lastly, beside it, the Arts Post and the gallery gift shop. Zooming out, this drawing illustrates how we have designed the art gallery to be able to accommodate and respect the mandatory view cone from the Citadel. To the south of the gallery is the future development site. We have designed this site so that in the future, the new building can have both the front door on Lower Water Street to the west and have a strong presence on the public eddy and the waterfront to the east. Maker's Lane runs between the future building and the art gallery. On day one, this site will be the public exhibition grounds, rekindling the Arts District, Lower Water Street, and the downtown. Next, I'd like to introduce Matthew Brown from Brackish Design Studio.
Thank you, Joost. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about how every muscle counts in fighting rising sea waters. The new AGNS provides an opportunity to embrace our connection to the coast, to be innovative, and to think beyond ourselves to create and strengthen a natural ecology that will give back to the 7 generations to come. To accomplish this, our resiliency strategy is born from being local and understanding our coastal landscapes and our regional materials. Our approach is a living shoreline design that is two-pronged. In addition to setting the first floor elevation well above the high water mark projected for the year 2100, the introduction of a living sea wall forms the outermost edge of our eddy, the first layer of coastal protection. This strong hardscape, constructed of local boulders reclaimed from the many nearby construction sites, protects the site from storm surge and wave action, creating a sheltered backshore environment for the establishment of a new tidal quilt. This sculpted, tiered salt marsh forms the second layer of defense against wave action. Its intricate root system creates a protective blanket along the edge of our building and gallery, preventing erosion and accommodating projected sea level rise. The calm waters, seagrasses, and voids and crevices within the seawall reestablish habitat for aquatic species like mussels, starfish, oysters, as well as migratory and coastal birds. The design positions landscape as infrastructure, protecting both the site and gallery, but more so, increasing the site's biodiversity and providing carbon sequestration within the marsh. The result, a new coastal design that maintains the connectivity along our waterfront, diversifies our waterfront experiences, and reestablishes our natural connection to the Great Harbor. And with that, I'd like to introduce Charles Marshall, our team sustainability lead.
Thanks, Matthew. I'd like to take a moment now to talk about being climate positive, or how seawater runs through our veins. This site and this program issue us a challenge to create a space that will enhance the waterfront for the next 150 years. To answer this challenge, our inspiration is looking backwards 150 years in the past and extending even further to look back over 7 generations. We look to the site and history for inspiration and to show us the principles that are proven over time and based in ecology. Trying to override nature with concrete and steel is a new concept. For thousands of years before that, we knew how to work with the sky, water, land, and sunshine. We have aimed to create a site that works the way nature does and embraces water rather than pushing back against it. We've incorporated local materials and textures that evoke the natural world and history of this region. We're offering a building that is durable and made to last, evolve, and change over the next 150 years. How do we make a space that Nova Scotians will be proud to call their own for generations in the future? We start by framing climate change as both a local problem and a global one. We need to show that we're protecting against future weather, but also leading the way, showing a better way to build. Our approach is called climate positive, a healthy, durable building that is energy efficient, low carbon, and designed to run on clean energy. It starts with passive design, providing a shape and a skin that lets light in while providing year-round environmental protection for exhibits and providing a comfortable place for people to look, listen, learn, and play. We're celebrating the lost art of letting the natural environment tell us how to shape our buildings. Our inspiration for delivering a low-carbon, climate-friendly building is from the era before fossil fuels. Our building form is designed to evoke the shapes and patterns of nature while saving energy and reducing on heating and cooling loads. On top of this, we're layering new clean technology to push to the highest level of energy performance and low carbon performance. Supply heating and cooling energy, we've applied the sea change principle all the way to our building systems, connecting to a heat exchanger in the harbor and using heat pumps to provide thermal energy from natural sources across all 4 seasons. On our team, the engineers know how to tell a story too. Beyond energy and systems, we have designed for low carbon in construction, thinking not just about fuel that the building runs on, but also the footprint of our materials. We've chosen local materials, low carbon concrete that sequesters CO2, and hybrid timber structure to reduce the embodied carbon of construction. We've embraced the principle of biophilic design, using natural patterns, materials, and shapes to encourage a natural sense of comfort, well-being, and wonder. Our vision is to make the building a catalyst for the well-being of residents in the local area and across the region. We want to enhance the ability of local residents to feel welcome, to explore natural systems, to participate in a local economy, to feel a sense of belonging, and to feel a sense of ownership of this public facility. Climate positive means a place that Nova Scotians are proud to own over the next 150 years and for 7 generations to come. With that, I'd like to introduce our public engagement lead, Jennifer Fix.
I speak directly to you, the peoples of Nova Scotia. Some of us on this design team are you. Our home is the same place you call home. Some of us are from away. But all of us listened carefully to the wisdom and ideas you shared during the AGNS community dialogue a couple of years ago. These revelations drove the design being offered to you today. Thank you. In response to what you said, we created the 24 malleable invitations described by others who've already spoken today. These try to honor your contributions and to bring them to life. For example, Indigenous voices conveyed that the new AGNS must be a place where Mi'kmaq people are at the start and at the center of the story being told. They've said they must be the ones to tell their own stories in their own voice. They said this must be a place for Mi'kmaq people to create space, to represent culture, reclaim identity. We responded with First Light Gallery, a space that celebrates the works of the first people, the first artists. And yet there are still so many questions left unanswered and unasked. In bringing this example, this invitation back to you, other questions emerge. Which stories must be told? How should they be told here? This is Mi'kmaq land. What does a Mi'kmaq welcome to visitors look like here? As we look to the future, the wisdom derived from the lived experiences of all Nova Scotians must once again be called upon. Before the design evolves any further, we want to reach out to you and to the many voices who've not yet spoken to create a plan for future dialogue. Share with us how you wish to participate in the engagement process. Tell us how you will join the journey of inquiry and discovery, of learning and of unlearning. How will you challenge? How will you be challenged? Let's create the path as we walk down it together. And now to bring us home, Shannon, the poet.
You set out bold aspirations to care for your artists, this place, and for all the peoples of Mi'kmaq. We feel proud and honored to have stepped up to this challenge. You called for an arts district. Our response is the People's Gallery. We are guided by First Light. The result is sea change. From the Great Harbor to First Light, the AGNS's People's Gallery is an open invitation to our past, present, and future. Welcome to a challenging, ambitious, and contemporary new light. Waliak for listening, sharing your time, and being with us on this journey. Misit Nogama for all my relations.
Thank you very much to the Dialogue, Acre Architects, Brackish Design Studio, Shannon Webb-Campbell team. And while we get the next team ready to present, I'm going to tell you a bit more about how the project will move forward after the winning design team has been chosen. In addition to the detailed competition brief, each one of these teams received over 550 pages of feedback that came from public and stakeholder engagement discussions in 2018. As we move through the process with the winning team, we will be asking Nova Scotians again to take part in the design process to help shape this new home for art and culture on the Halifax Waterfront. It's important that at the end of this, we have a building and space that is representative of all of our communities in the province, and we cannot do that without your input. Some of that work is being done now. The feedback gathered from the competition will be shared with the winning team as they work with the AGNS, Develop Nova Scotia, and the province to craft an engagement plan. So stay tuned to the AGNS, Develop Nova Scotia, and Province of Nova Scotia social media channels for more information on how to remain involved in the project development. The third and final team tonight we will be hearing from is KPMB Architects with Omar Gandhi Architect, Jordan Bennett Studio, Elder Lorraine Whitman, Public Work, and Transsolar. I will now hand it over to Heather Hansen from the KPMB team to begin. Heather, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Elder Whitman to please open our presentation. Lorraine, you're muted.
Walalin Heather. Waliasuku, Jalasia Mi'kmaq. On behalf of the Mi'kmaq Nation, I welcome you to unceded, untraditional territory of the Ilnu Mi'kmaq people. Deloise, Lorraine Whitman, also known as Grandmother White Sea Turtle. I have been very blessed to have spent the last 3 decades advocating for Indigenous rights, not only in Mi'kmaq, but across Turtle Island and internationally. Over the years, I have proudly worked on addressing significant issues facing our people, including access to education and the promotion of good governance. And today, I am honored to attend this public presentation on the capacity of an Ilnu Mi'kmaq Haybit. I would like to take a moment to address the unique situation we, as the human race, now find ourselves in, while we grieve with those all over the globe who have suffered and who have lost loved ones to COVID-19 and senseless state-sanctioned violence. But sometimes from crisis comes opportunity. Perhaps Mother Earth is giving us a chance to change to a better version of ourselves, to start a new circle. This is what the province and the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia are giving us the opportunity to do. As you may know, our culture is based on stories handed down through the generations. Our elders would, and many still do, gather and share their knowledge and their stories around the campfire or around the kitchen table. They have done this for generations. When we gather, we sing, we dance, we drum, we feast, and we tell stories, like stories of that of the Glooskap legends, and the 7 sparks that would cast the first sacred fire, creating the 7 districts of Mi'kma'ki. The Mi'kmaq 8-point star, as I wear it on my chest, is a visual representation of Mi'kmaq as a peoples. 1 point for each district, and 1 more as a symbol of our commitment to work together as one, to create a brighter future for the next generations, not just for the generations of Indigenous people, but for all people. Mawiomi gatherings is the center of our design in the new AGNS. To join together in celebration is fundamental to Indigenous nations, and I'm saddened that we are not here to join in person, but here in the east, where every morning the sun slips over the watery horizon and meets the land, here in Mi'kma'ki. We are the first to greet the dawn, welcoming each new day, full of hope and possibilities. Instead, I offer you the soothing beat of the drum. Our mother's heartbeat is the first thing we are able to recognize when we are within her womb, and it comforts us, just as the drum, the heartbeat of Mother Earth, comforts us now. So while we can't be together to meet and to celebrate, we can gather together through the sound of the drum. We gather to unite our passion for telling our stories and our design. And I want to share this space as a presence, not in the traditional sense of imposing or aggressive, but rather it demonstrates the power of culture, language, unity, and the positivity of the most respectful and creative way possible. This scheme demonstrates the marriage between internal, external, water, and land. I am honored and excited to be part of it. MC Nogama, Walalin.
Walalin, Lorraine, thank you. And thank you to the members of the jury, as well as the province, and to Nova Scotians and beyond who are tuning in this evening to learn about this outstanding initiative, a new art gallery of Nova Scotia located on the beautiful Halifax Waterfront. We're grateful for the opportunity to share our preliminary design with you this evening and share the story of our inspiration. My name is Heather Hansen. I'm with the PR Hive here in Halifax, and our role on the team is to lead public engagement in the future. But right now, I'd like to introduce you to members of our team who will be speaking this evening. Elder Lorraine Whitman, Grandmother White Sea Turtle, President of the Native Women's Council of Canada, and our guiding voice on the inclusion of the Mi'kmaq culture and people in the design of this new art gallery. Omar Gandhi of Omar Gandhi Architects, design architect and collaborator on the project. Jordan Bennett, multidisciplinary award-winning artist, artist consultant, and design collaborator. Mark Ryan from Public Work, lead landscape architect and public space designer. Tommaso Bittosi, climate engineer with Transsolar. Bruce Kuwabera, lead design architect from KPMB Architects. And Shirley Bloomberg, partner in charge, KPMB Architects. We have many other team members we'd like to introduce you to, but in the interest of time, we'll move along to our design discussion. Before I hand it over to my colleagues, I would like to emphasize our gratitude for the public's input into the concept of a Halifax Art District when these engagement activities were first held in 2018. This provided a great deal of information to our team and helped shape what we'll present to you shortly. In the early days of this competition, our team declared our approach to the design of this building as from the ground up, our commitment to acknowledging the first people of these lands. This design is a reflection of our respect for the Mi'kmaq people and our desire to uphold, honor, and celebrate them and their culture. We were able to meet with a small group of elders and leaders from the Mi'kmaq community, and there will be many more conversations to come. And there'll be more engagement on this design to come with Nova Scotians from all communities. This design may come across as complete, but it isn't. It's a starting point. It needs your input so that it becomes a gallery that is welcoming to all, a place shaped for Nova Scotians by Nova Scotians. And right now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Omar Gandhi from Omar Gandhi Architects.
Thank you very much, Heather. Next slide, please. Thank you to the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, Develop Nova Scotia, and the leadership behind the new gallery. Your vision is a beacon of hope for the art community, province, and region as a whole. In spite of COVID-19 and the tense events that surround us, you saw this new gallery not only as a new way of thinking about art, but a new way about the world, a catalyst. We found each other and accepted your challenge. We never looked back. Next slide. Our team is made up of mentors and apprentices. We're a diverse group composed of multi-generational, multicultural leaders in our field. We were guided by love and a common belief that architecture can change the world. Before a pencil-touched paper, we met with a small group of Mi'kmaq elders, one of whom was the matriarch of our team. Next slide, please. Elder Lorraine Whitman, a tireless advocate for Indigenous women in Canada. The road was meandering and oftentimes difficult, but an undeniable force led us to a destination none of us envisioned or thought was possible. Our work is the product of a beautiful collaboration and a genuine resolve. Next slide, please. In addition to our core team, we employed the skills of craftspeople spanning the Maritime provinces, from North Preston, Nova Scotia to Charlottetown, PEI, from New Minas to the north end of Halifax. Next slide. Now more than ever, it's critical that we support the local economy. Next. From the ground up also means that the construction of the new art gallery is composed of a variety of local materials and aims to support local industry. Next. We intend to commercially activate the waterfront district and surrounding area through the focused curation of retail run by women and members of the BIPOC community. The gallery and its inception is a catalyst on many fronts. Next. I know this part of the city well. Next. I've walked that stretch daily for the last 10 years, up from my studio in the Immigration Annex of Pier 21, and on the weekend down from the wave sculpture hand in hand with my little boy. This site is a perfect microcosm for the city, where so many different forces and senses collide, a place to think and a place to dream. Next. The gentle sea breeze carries with it the distinct smell of the ocean. Next. The soundtrack of nature, waves rolling against the shoreline and wind rustling through leaves and bird song, creates harmony with the sound of the city's people, laughing children, deep conversation, a friendly good morning in passing. In fact, if you squint your eyes, I truly believe that you can see both and hear the full potential of our beautiful city. Next. This is not only a place to imagine, it's a landscape with a richness that is palpable. Next. You can see the glow of energy warming the harborfront from mouth to basin, not only in the busy summer season, but through our coldest, most bitter months, which make up for a large part of the year. Next. It's a place you need to be, a place unlike any other. Next. Composed of the elements and resources that make our landscape singular. Next. Much like the intricate craftwork of traditional Mi'kmaq basketry, the future site of the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia carries the potential of fortifying local culture and economy by weaving together multiple and complex ecologies, social, cultural, economic, political of Halifax to form a vital arts hub. Next. But of equal importance to those social, cultural, economic, political those pronounced bent ash reeds are those shadows left by the voids of that fabric. Next, an acknowledgement of the pain and destruction of specific people and cultures. Next, Halifax has had its wounds, its scars are felt. Next, this is our great opportunity to make a cultural hub for the city and all her people. Thank you. Next, and on to my dear friend, Jordan Bennett.
Thank you, Omar. Right from the beginning, when our team was formed and we engaged in our first conversation, it was understood that Mi'kmaq ways of knowing our culture would be the foundation of this project. As Ilnu, a Mi'kmaq person from and living on Mi'kma'ki, I am a descendant of the ancestors who have welcomed others to these shores for hundreds of years, in times of both peace and hardship. Next slide, please. We've been here for over 13,000 years. That's 660 generations and growing. I'm truly excited to be a collaborator on a project that aligns with the vision of the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia to create not just a gallery that acknowledges the past, but builds a gathering space where Mi'kmaq stories are rooted in its very core. When imagining the impact and significance of such a project, it allows me to see not just the 660 generations that led us here, but to the 660 generations to come. Working with this team over the past few months, designing this project has not only been an opportunity to create a space for art and community, but a space that will be the backdrop of future stories in our collective community. A space for Mawiomis. Next slide, please. The new Art Gallery of Nova Scotia presented us with an unprecedented opportunity to reflect on the deep history of where it stands in Mi'kma'ki. And we responded by truly rooting our concept in Mi'kmaq ways of knowing, from the shape of the building to sustainability, right down to the materials being used. Rebuilding the model of a public art gallery for our team means truly breaking the mold of what has come before. Collectively, we not only aim to rebuild the model, we want to set the example and be the model that others look to. Being rooted in Mi'kma'ki, our space is grounded in and based around several key concepts originating in Mi'kmaq culture, which were brought forward by the Mi'kmaq members of our team in conversation with our initial small Mi'kmaq Council of Elders and Community. Next slide, please. Ndumglik, a Mi'kmaq way of being rooted in sustainability and respect for all living things, informs the entire design, from landscape to architecture. The design is climate responsive, is seasonally convertible, and always comfortable in the maritime climate. This area of Halifax was known by Mi'kmaq as Goyle Gauge, the Big Pine Hill, a lush hunting ground populated by forest and animals. Within our design, we aim to reintroduce the Acadian forest to this site, echoing the past and making way for the future. Next, please. Mawiomi, the common thread in all of our conversations, sketches, and brainstorming sessions was the idea of gathering. Mawiomi is a word in the Mi'kmaq language meaning gathering, and this is at the heart of a design in all areas, inside and out. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Eel. The body of Godao, or eel, inspired the design, emerging from and returning to Chiboktok, the Great Harbor. The eel, a universal measure of the health of the environment, is also significant to the culture, knowledge, and sustainable practices of the Mi'kmaq. We echo the movement, color, physical, and cultural aspects of this animal from the water's edge up to creating a dialogue between architecture and landscape to form the great outdoor gathering circle. Next slide. The Peat Hat. The recognized shape of the Mi'kmaq Peat Hat inspired the shaping of the main entrance at Lower Water and Solder Street to create a welcoming, nurturing experience where everyone feels at home. The hat is also a symbol of the strength, wisdom, love, and power that the matriarchs hold within the Mi'kmaq communities. Next slide. First and foremost, I come to this project with the role of artist, a unique opportunity that our team has in this process. As an artist who has exhibited in a variety of spaces locally, nationally, and internationally, from galleries, artist run centers, and the street, I know the importance of what opportunities each unique space presents. Next slide. When you create a space that can seamlessly transform and adapt to accommodate for new and innovative art, festivals, and gatherings, both inside and out, you create a place for everyone. Every artist's story is different. Each artist's needs in creating, exhibiting, and presenting their creations are unique. Next slide, please. In our design, we listen to the public responses and wishes. We will continue to listen and learn from the community and others invested in this project to incorporate the artists and the community's needs. By creating a space that acknowledges and believes in the important stories and conversations of artists from all of our diverse communities, this gallery will play a central and key part of the shared Nova Scotian story. Next slide, please. Artists will find inspiration, and new generations of storytellers will find ownership within this space. When you empower youth, when you include and make spaces available, accessible, engaging, and inclusive for all peoples, you create opportunities to change our collective futures. With that, I'd like to pass it over to Mark. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jordan. I'm going to share how we've approached the design of the site and the landscape, and begin to show how our team's foundational understandings from Mi'kmaq culture have been synthesized and come to life in our design. Next slide, please. In most cities, a natural shoreline has become a rare and endangered landscape. And yet here at the Salter Block, we've almost inherited one. A 100-meter stretch of cobble shoreline that hints at the potential of a natural coastline experience, in contrast to the rigid geometry of the dockland piers seen across downtown. But for us to imagine here a place that propels new ways of thinking, we had to envision the landscape from a different perspective. Next slide, please. A perspective from the floor of the harbor itself, the view from the fish, the approach from the rising eel, born from the ocean. Next, please. We asked ourselves, what if the harbor floor, an ancient flooded river valley, became the floor of the public spaces, the floor of the streetscapes? Our mission here is to extend the shoreline experience and universal importance of water deeper into the city. Next, please. How might that look and feel? We imagine the regeneration of this public shoreline rooted in Nova Scotia's most memorable shoreline ecologies, changing dramatically as they rise from the lower shore to the upland forest. Next, please. With a sequence of landscapes from ocean to city, you would move from the Great Harbor, across the lagoon and saltwater marshes, over the cobble beach to the upper shore native meadows, and into the uplands, culminating in patches of Acadian forest where you meet the city grid. Next, please. We know there are real concerns about building along the waterfront in the context of climate change and extreme storm events, like you're seeing at this very moment with Hurricane Teddy. In our scheme, the landscape is absorptive infrastructure, able to strategically accept water inland during storms, making space for water on site, with plant communities and habitat types selected to withstand seasonal inundations as a measure of site resiliency. Next, please. To organize the site, a serpentine gesture, inspired by the eel, as Jordan described, takes the form of both a building and a landscape. It shapes a series of public spaces from ocean to city. Next, please. So here's our overall site plan. Our vision is to engage the waterfront and support new forms of life from the street to the water's edge and beyond. Next, please. Ultimately, we are reimagining the public shoreline downtown. It's about how people, art, and ideas come together with a dynamic landscape and an engaging, inclusive environment. Next, please. But there's something limiting about the existing pier boardwalk structure. Our instinct was to dramatically expand the experience of life on the waterfront as far as possible beyond the conventional edges of the site. In this case, eastward, past the frame of the boardwalk pier, to embrace the full scale of the Great Harbor. Next, please. So we've recentered the water's edge as the center of life. Here we are all invited to the heart of the water experience. On either side, two distinct environments unfold. The inner lagoon to the west and outer floating features to the east, both new places where culture and nature can flourish. Next, please. The existing boardwalk is a 4-kilometer miracle of the Halifax Waterfront. It's amazing. Our proposal builds upon the strong identity and life of the boardwalk today. Next, please. But it's carefully adapted here. With a softening or uncornering of the sharp turns, new places are created to pause and linger, opening up new perspectives and points of contact with the shoreline. Next, please. In this case, we gain an inward perspective, a moment to tune in to the details of the rugged lagoon shoreline ecology, the rhythms of the tides as a foreground to the AGNS against the backdrop of the city. Next, please. We believe there's magic in the fusion of creative art forms, programmable marine infrastructure for public life, and new ecologies. Next, please. And very simply, this is water you can touch. The intimate inner shoreline is transformed into an intertidal playground to be accessed and explored by all ages. Next, please. The counter experience to this is vast and open, expanding perspectives outward to the scale of the Great Harbor. We're thrust beyond the boardwalk into a world of seasonally floating jetties, walkways, and island habitats, where we gain unobstructed views towards George's Island and beyond. Next, please. And perhaps this is the climax of the Halifax Waterfront, a sublime moment where we glimpse a sight of the harbor without us. Next, please. An ancient backdrop of the waterscape with floating island marshes opens our imagination to the early perspectives of Jibuktuk as we greet the rising sun. Next, please. Now let's imagine more forms of floating culture. Anchored to the fixed pier boardwalk structure, a range of diverse floating elements can bring life to the harbor surface. From food production to aquatic habitat, marine recreation, art installations, education, research stations, micro-commerce activations, all kinds of new creative forms of water culture can be invited to moor here and animate this offshore landscape. Next, please. Back to the site plan. The contrasting faces of the new building, north versus south, suggest an exciting duality of experiences on the site. The programming of these areas will create enriching contrasts and new venues for gatherings, exhibitions, and events. Next. The north trajectory is the most green, a civic-scaled stretch of parkland next to the shoreline that extends out to the boardwalk and floating jetties. It has an ideal warm season microclimate, open to the sun with huge programming potential. Next, please. The south trajectory is the most intimate, an inner-focused arts yard with an eclectic and experimental feel that sets the tone for the emerging arts district as a whole. Next. It's an ideal cold season microclimate, protected by the AGNS building from winter winds, with programming oriented to Lower Water Street and a cluster of temporary installations, activations, and pavilions within the yard. Next. Now, a quick tour. From the streetscape of Lower Water, we're greeted by the majestic conifers of the Acadian forest, which highlight the gallery's main entrance. Next, please. Then we move around the building to Salter Park, an expanded vision for the AGNS green spaces, which transforms the foot of Salter Street into a sweeping park, connecting the city grid to its naturalized waterfront. Next. And all routes lead us to the Circle gathering place. Here is the space to create something new. As Elder Lorraine Whitman has inspired us, our chance to literally start a circle that accepts us all. This new public plaza embraces process, change, and time. It promotes a culture of ongoing creative interaction and engagement. And it's a place that leaves space for more ideas to come, especially ones we've yet to imagine. Next, please. This place of celebration will support the synergies between the city, the gallery, and the shoreline, and host a constantly changing cycle of events, from extra small to extra large. Next, please. In every season, it will never be the same twice. Next. There will be times of extreme weather when we face the forces of Mother Nature. Next. There will be times when we can measure her transitions. Next, please. And there will be times when the place quietly sleeps, yet always inspires curiosity and celebration. Next, please. And this new building and landscape are completely interwoven, so they together offer completely new perspectives of place. The tail of the eel is where the landscape joins the eastern extension of the gallery. Next. And this presents the opportunity to step out of the galleries or slow down from the boardwalk track, a moment of reflection. Next, please. What better place to end than the tail of the eel and hand over to Bruce Kuwabara, who will introduce the stunning new art gallery building. Bruce?
Thank you, Mark. The pandemic has made me realize just how much I miss going to galleries, reinforcing how essential art is to our understanding of the world. As Jordan told us, there's no word in art in the Mi'kmaq language because art is part of life. Next slide, please. The Art Gallery of Nova Scotia challenged us to think differently about art gallery design. Next. To change the model of art galleries from bastions to collect and present art to a series of inclusive and immersive experiences a haven for art and people, a gathering place and a community living room. The serpentine form of the new Art Gallery of Nova Scotia connects the city to the waterfront and looks to the Citadel and the Great Harbor. Next, please. The body of the cat or eel and its sinuous form allows the building to flow across the site from the ground up, playing off the city grid. The building is composed of low, medium, and higher elements scaled to relate to and stimulate a conversation with the existing context and the neighborhood. Next, please. The building is surrounded by a fantastic forested landscape. Spaces inside and outside flow together and will be animated with innovative programming. The landscape, as Mark described, extends onto the roof of the building, where there are lush terraces that are open and accessible to views of the city and the water. Next, please. The eel wraps the lower levels of the art gallery from the Peat Hat entrance at Lower Water Street to the tail. Vertical terracotta elements on canted facades serve to regulate light, air, and temperature. Next, please. Within the eel, 3 pavilions contain art galleries, a lecture theater, multi-purpose rooms, and offices. Next, please. A timber grid defines an undulating procession from the downtown to the harbor, guiding movement between the galleries and defining intimate settings for visitors to rest along their journey within the structure. Next, please. The Peat Hat entrance on the lower corner of Lower Water Street at Salter creates a welcoming gesture of invitation to all visitors, offering views into the main lobby, which Lorraine Whitman suggests we name Mawiomi Odium. Next, please. Mawiomi Odium is a large, welcoming living room for the city. It is anchored by a triangular fireplace and offers an open, flexible space for installations and community events. The northernmost light court accommodates a retail shop and harborside entrance. The north face is highly transparent to offer spectacular views of the Great Harbor. Next, please. From the harbor, the 3 pavilions rise above the open ground floor. Outdoor terraces on the roof allow the AGNS to offer visitors many opportunities to move between the inside and outdoors through all levels. Next, please. The 3rd light court is located between the main building elements and the tail. The Oculus is a multi-purpose symbolic outdoor gathering place that can function as an outdoor classroom, a play space for children, and a public passage leading to the water. Next, please. The tail emerges from the ocean. It offers public seating in a rugged landscape that extends to the 2nd floor viewing terrace around the Oculus. Here, the skin of the eel moderates the wind and creates a more protected enclosure that enriches the visitor's experience and journey. Next, please. All of our building systems and elements are integrated and interwoven, playing off and harmonizing with each other. We are creating a new model, an art gallery of our time and for the future, and a unique identity for the AGNS by creating at many scales, engaging in contemplative spaces to provide immersive experiences on this amazing waterfront site. By thinking about people and land first, we have developed a design concept that represents intensive collaboration and the interweaving of thinking and making. And now I will hand it over to Shirley to take you inside and give you a tour of the new AGNS.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm thrilled to be the first tour guide of the inside of the AGNS. Next slide, please. Mawiomi Odium is a large, inviting living room for the city directly off Lower Water Street. You can enter the building from the city and the harbor, and the promenade in between forms an intimate porch, a place to hang out with a cafe, reception, retail, and art installations on the north side, and the education studios on the east. Next slide, please. This project is about people coming together. Indoor and outdoor, the new AGNS is designed to welcome thousands of people on a beautiful summer's evening, or a handful on a cold winter's day. Next, please. I'm going to briefly walk you through how the building works. At grade, all the public amenities and education studios are open to visitors. Level 2 accommodates the lecture theatre on the city side and permanent galleries on the harbour side. All the temporary galleries are located on level 3 and can be combined in different ways for a wide range of exhibitions. On the harbour side of level 4, we've located the multi-purpose event spaces with access to a beautiful outdoors terrace and spectacular views to the harbour and George's Island. On the city side, you can visit the Maud Lewis Gallery and the other permanent galleries. On these plans, they show the promenades on each level on the north and east that offer spectacular viewing platforms towards the city and the harbour. The vertical light courts are animated by stairs you could use to access the gallery levels and see people in the building below. We've designed the circulation connecting the galleries as a journey of discovery, always moving into the light. I want to emphasize that every space in the building is designed to be universally accessible. Whether you take the stairs, the elevator, or a ramp, everyone arrives at the same place on each floor. Next, please. As you move through the building, you experience the warmth of the wood cladding the 3 pavilions. Next, please. We imagine a range of galleries, with some having controlled access to light and views like this one. We've designed all the temporary galleries to be flexible, robust, and agile enough to give curators and artists endless opportunities for artistic expression in every medium. But most importantly, they're designed to provide you with an intimate and profound connection to the art. Next, please. This is a view of a permanent gallery. Next, please. We've placed the Maud Lewis Gallery in a position of pride on the 4th floor. We added a window so that when you arrive on the floor for an event or a visit to galleries, in addition to the view of the ocean, you have a glimpse into this iconic exhibition. Next, please. Back on Lower Water Street, the building has a warm and welcoming presence. We've thought a lot about how the site could be commercially activated in all seasons. One delightful possibility is this winter market on the north side of, on the south side of the building. Now I'm going to hand it over to Tommaso, who's going to tell you how this project will be an exemplar of sustainable design.
Thank you, Shirley, and good evening, everybody. Next slide, please. Today, only 2% of the buildings achieve an out-of-the-ordinary design. And we want your art gallery of Nova Scotia to be one of them. We don't want it to be only neutral, as for carbon neutral, but we want it to also have a positive impact on Halifax. In addition, this building will transfer your past and present identity to the next generations. And for this reason, we decided to be resilient against an unpredictable future. Next slide, please. In Halifax, there are 3 main challenges: CO2 emissions, rising sea levels, and cold winters. Next slide, please. In terms of CO2 emissions, we designed the building based on passive principles. Also, it is entirely powered by electricity to avoid on-site combustion and pollution. We maximize the use of natural materials, which, as Omar said, are also locally sourced in order to support the local economy, but also in order to reduce the CO2 emitted for their production and transportation to the site. Next slide, please. I'm not from Halifax. I'm Italian, as you might have noticed due to my very strong accent. However, I immediately fell in love with the concept of your longhouse. AGNS will have a similar one. It will also be naturally ventilated and naturally daylit, but only when and where possible. In fact, we created a building with different climatic zones. Some of them are 100% mechanically controlled, such as the galleries. Some others are fully passively conditioned. Next slide, please. Your art gallery is on the waterfront. Therefore, we shaped the landscape and the elevation of the building in order to protect it even beyond the worst case scenario projected in 2100 in terms of sea levels, but also storms. And I know you get some good ones there. Next slide, please. Finally, we wanted you to enjoy the outdoor spaces as much as possible. And now more than ever, we understand how much that is important. This is why, as Bruce and Mark said, with the support of computer-based simulation, we designed the outdoor spaces around the building to be vibrant also during the colder months. Before I hand it over to Heather, let me share here, I'm a sustainability consultant. I have seen many integrated design processes, but this one for me was a special one. First of all, I totally enjoyed digging into your history and culture, but it was also a deeply rewarding experience to work with such a committed team, so driven in designing something that we all hope will be much more than a building. Back to you, Heather.
Thank you, Tommaso. The Art Gallery of Nova Scotia's new ways of thinking challenged us to rethink what an art gallery could be and how it could become the heart of the arts district in Halifax. The AGNS brief read, the spirit and personality of the new art gallery will acknowledge its place on Mi'kmaq territory. It will represent an artistic expression of the importance of the land to the Mi'kmaq people, be a place to celebrate Mi'kmaq culture, and serve as that central place to welcome all visitors. I will now ask our meeting host to please cue our film, which was created by an extreme local talent, North Preston's own Tyler Simmons, and it speaks to the inspiration for our design.
We made this for you. We dreamt of a place for us. A place dreamt by an unlikely group of people who became friends in the process, made up of generational mentors and leaders in their respective communities. It happened at a tipping point in our world, a time that pushed back and demanded change, a new way forward, a new way of thinking. I want to tell you about a place. It's a place for us, all of us, Msitnogama, for all my relations. Listening to the teachings and directions of the original caretakers of this place, now known as Halifax, the Mi'kmaq. Myself, Jordan Bennett, with the guidance of grandmother White Sea Turtle, Lorraine Whitman, and Mi'kmaq elders have shared ancestral teachings and knowledge with our integrated design team. This place was built on a group of concepts, elements, understandings, and connections rooted in Mi'kmaq ways of being and knowing. Nadumgalik, the Mi'kmaq concept of sustainability and respect for all living things, helps shape and foster the core values inside and out. The gallery's form, inspired by the body of Godao, or eel, forms the exterior and interior of the space, emerging from and entering into Jibuktuk, the Great Harbor. With its canted grayish-blue terracotta skin, reflecting, shining, and aiding in regulating the space, the eel form exemplifies Nadumgalik. The eel is a measure of the health of its environment and has always been significant to the culture, knowledge, and sustainable practices of the Mi'kmaq. The form allows the building to beautifully flow without colonial constraints and seamlessly open to a landscape inspired by the coastline and ocean, a regenerative landscape that engages Jibuktuk, a place where people learn, explore, and play, where innovative art, artists, and community are central and ever present. This place is a place to visit, a place where Mawiomis happen. Mawiomis, or gatherings, are integral to the design, a design that continues to bring people together to experience great art rooted in history that is provocative, challenging, and engaging. To honor our matriarchs, a Peat Hat form welcomes visitors at the entrance of the building, a symbol of the strength, wisdom, love, and power that our women hold within our communities.
Waliok, we created this for you, always with you in mind. We created this for you, a place where art, language, love, gasalu, and all things are not separate, but one in the same spirit. MC Nogama.
You can begin, Lorraine.
Am I on mute? I spoke of the 8-point star in my opening. And now in closing, I would like to talk to you about the medicine wheel, a simple circle divided into 4. Simple, but all-encompassing. It's a representation of the colors of human race, the 4 directions, the medicine that cleansed the soul, the seasons, and the message time, from the youthful yellow to the white, representing the hair of our elders. And a circle is such a perfect form, with no beginning and no ending, only possibilities. So as we prepare to hang up instead of disperse, I just want to let you know that in Mi'kmaq, we don't have a word for goodbye. We only say nomoltis until we see you again. And I look forward to seeing you all again and working together on this exciting project. This completes our presentation. Ulaliak.
Thank you very much. We'd like to thank the KPMB architects with Omar Gandhi Architect, Jordan Bennett Studio, Elder Lorraine Whitman, Public Work, and Transsolar team. And that concludes the 3 presentations. I want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight. I would also like to thank our supporters, Time and Space Media and Atlantic Livestream, AB Captioning, and our interpreters, Karina and Monica. Finally, I would like to thank the Province of Nova Scotia and the Government of Canada for their commitment to this important project. As a reminder, you can help shape the future of art in Nova Scotia. Please visit the in-person exhibition at the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia or visit artgalleryofnovascotia.ca. Mostly though, we want it to be inclusive and to build a home for all Nova Scotians, to reflect our diverse community back to ourselves and to engage the wider world in art and creativity. Please join us on that journey and participate in the process of creating a new Art Gallery of Nova Scotia. Thank you very much and good night.